How many of you know what GMO stands for? One person. Okay. Well, today we're going to learn about GMO, specifically corn. GMO actually does stand for genetically modified organisms. Some things are modified without you even knowing it. Oftentimes, if you look on food, it'll say like non-GMO because people don't like GMO. So, since 1973, humans have relentlessly genetically modified organisms. Humans have modified anything from food like soybeans to animals like dogs. Today, we will discuss how those foods are modified, specifically corn. Corn is one of the most common genetically modified foods. Genetically modifying crops can improve our crop yields, reduce the cost of food, reduce the use of pesticides, and increase the level of nutrients. In the long run, studies have shown that genetically modified organisms can show a distinct improvement to our environment. For instance, the environmental impact of genetically modified crops states that the widespread adoption of GM crops and the agriculture practices associated with their use have resulted in aggregate reductions in herbicide and insecticide volumes, as well as an improvement in the EIQ profile of these chemicals. Without genetically modified foods, our food prices would shoot up alongside greenhouse gases. While genetically modified organisms can improve numerous concepts, there's always a downside. Are the benefits worth the hassle of the issues caused by genetically modified organisms? Does anyone here have an allergy to any foods? Well, 6.2% or 20 million people of the USA population suffer from a food allergy that's retrieved from allergy facts. Genetically modified organisms or foods bring a huge risk to the table of the exposure to new and old allergens. Within seconds, one bite of food can cause someone's life to flash before their eyes. Allergies are often hidden in foods, causing allergic reactions. With that, there are many more issues that genetically modified foods may cause, but no official studies or evidence to prove these claims. These claims consist of infertility, cancer, causing diseases. The list is endless. The biggest concern of genetically modified corn is the spread through the environment. To illustrate this claim, if they are introduced into the environment, they can affect biodiversity. For example, existing species can be overrun by dominant new species. If the genetically modified corn were to make its way to wild corn, it may be harmful to animals and the environment, from consequences of GMOs for biodiversity. When you think of corn, you think of bright yellow, big, and with the shucks on it. But without genetically modified corn, it is often brown and small, and it kind of looks like the corn that you give squirrels. The biggest question is, how are these organisms genetically modified? First, scientists determine what trait they want the corn to have. These traits include resistance to droughts, herbicides, or insects. These traits give the crops the capacity to flourish to the best of their abilities. Second, they'll find an organism that possesses this specific trait. For example, the Bt trait can be used to reduce the need of pesticides. Once that gene that has been needed is found, it is then copied. This copied gene will be inserted into the DNA of the corn. For example, they would take a piece out of the DNA and clip on a new piece of the DNA holding the specific trait that they would want the corn to have. This can completely change the corn and how the corn strives in its environment. Once the new DNA has been inserted into the corn, the scientists will monitor the corn, keeping it in the lab to record if it grows and develops correctly. If it does not grow and develop correctly, they will not put it in the wild. You can find a deeper explanation on this on Am I Eating Foods That Come from GMO Crops. The whole process of modifying corn and getting it placed in the market can take years, but Many foods come from GMO. Many foods do take years to get on the floor just because they are GMO. With all things considered, genetically modified organisms are not perfect. They have their downsides, but they can truly help the world.